Hello, welcome back. Now, the day that I'm recording this is July 2nd, so we're one day into 2025 NHL free agency. So I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on some of the more bigger stories to come out of the first day of free agency and also some other stories around the league. You can't talk about this free agency class without talking about Mitch Marner, so let's get that out of the way. Obviously, Mitch Marner signs an 8-year extension with the Maple Leafs before getting traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. 8 years times $12 million per year. And the Toronto Maple Leafs in return get Nicolas Roy for his signing rights for him to go to Vegas. Now, if you're the Maple Leafs, obviously you lose this deal in principle because you lose the best player in this deal. Mitch Marner was the best player on the Leafs this past season, at least during the regular season, putting up some really nice numbers for the Leafs and giving some stellar 200-foot play. And in return, all you get is a third-line center, which, I mean, Nicolas Roy is a good player, but obviously he's nowhere near the caliber of what a Mitch Marner was giving you on a night-to-night basis. Now, throughout this whole Mitch Marner saga, my take has probably remained the same. I mean, I just knew that he was going to leave the second that he didn't sign an extension last summer. I knew that he was not going to get traded at the midway point because I never thought that any team would be willing to give up enough to make the Maple Leafs trade him, especially in a year where the Leafs want to compete. And that's why you heard those rumors of them asking him to waive his no movement clause in a potential Mikko Rantanen trade that never came to fruition. Now, in hindsight, obviously, the Panthers ran through the East, won another cup. The Leafs failed to beat them in another Game 7. And now we're here, and Mitch Marner's a Vegas Golden Knight. Now, from my perspective, it would be easy to shit on the player, right? It would be easy to say that this is all on Mitch Marner. But when you look at things in hindsight, this is just a terrible failure by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner should have never been a free agent. He should have been extended. He should have been a lifetime Maple Leaf. Should have retired as one of the greatest, if not the greatest Maple Leaf of all time. But now we're here, and now he's in Vegas. Now, obviously, in free agency, we also saw the Florida Panthers somehow pull off the miracle of bringing back Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad all on very team-friendly deals. And they look like they're suited and booted and ready to go for a three-peat and become one of the best dynasty the league has ever seen. I'm excited as a hockey fan to see if they can make it happen, and because it's just nice to see greatness in our sport. I'm probably in the minority for that. I think everyone hates the Panthers. If the Players Association has a problem with how players are negotiating their contracts and not getting full value, then that's up for the Players Association to negotiate at the next collective bargaining agreement. So we'll just have to see the ramifications of this. But yeah, the Panthers are locked and loaded, and they look like they're headed for a three-peat. I really like what the Oilers have done this offseason, getting off of that Evander Kane contract, getting off the Victor Arvidsson contract, signing Evan Bouchard to the deal that they did, not completely overpaying him, but also not letting him walk for nothing. He's an integral part of that team, and seeing him stay in Edmonton is nice. Rumor has it that they're working on an extension with McDavid. We'll see where that goes. But I also really like the addition of Andrew Mangiapane on a 2-year deal. I believe it's like $3.6 million annual AAV, which I think is a fair deal, and I think he's going to have a chance to play with McDavid and put up some numbers. I mean, this is a very, very talented player. Put up some mediocre numbers in Washington this past year, but I think with more opportunities in the top six and maybe some power play time, who knows? He could be a really, really nice player for the Oilers and a player that I think that they needed in their top nine, a guy who has some actual juice and is not just, going to the corner and get puck from McDavid type of guy. I really like Detroit getting aggressive and getting really the only goalie that was on the market in John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks. They didn't really give up a lot, but obviously with Gibson, it's age, term on his deal. He still has 3 years left at a pretty significant cap hit. I think it hovers around $7 million a year, which is pretty significant. But at the same time, Gibson, when he's healthy, and that's the big if, is if he stays healthy. But when he's healthy, he's one of the best 10 to 15 goalies in the league, and I think it's a worthy bet for a Detroit team that's hoping to crack through and make the playoffs and stay in the mix for years in the years coming ahead. This is a team that has been hot in the beginning, struggled to make things come together at the end of the year to be that consistent playoff team. But this is the right step in what has been a very questionable Yzer plan, but this was a nice step, and I'm excited to see what John Gibson can do under a new environment. Now, those are the things that I liked from July 1st. Some things that I didn't like. I hated the Tanner Jeannot contract for the Bruins. I think that's ridiculous. This is a guy who's been a lifetime bottom sixer. He's put in very mediocre years, year after year, and now he's getting a 5-year contract at $3.4 million annually. This is a very weird contract, and I think it has a chance to really age poorly for a guy who has never been proven to be more than just an average bottom sixer who hits sometimes and has a nice shot. I'm not a huge fan of what Carolina did either, trading for Condre Miller from the New York Rangers and giving him that huge extension. They gave up a couple of draft picks and a prospect, Joe Morrow, who's pretty good, uh, and they gave him the money. That's a lot to give up for a player in Keandre Miller that I don't think has the upside to be a top pair guy. Um, and where does he slot in on the left side of that blue line? I mean, you already have Slavin, you already have Nikishin, you already have Gostisbehere. Do you get rid of one of those guys? Who knows? We'll see. But I'm not a huge fan of how much Carolina had to give up for the quality of player that Keandre Miller. While a good defenseman, top four, absolutely. It feels like a lot for him. And finally, I don't really get what the Kings are doing. I mean, letting go of Gavrikov, but giving basically like $8 million almost to Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin makes no sense. Just pay off for Gavrikov. And there was rumors that Elliot Friedman was reporting that they were having conversations with Gavrikov and his agent to bring him back. They went sour, and then Gavrikov goes to the Rangers. And giving up all that money for Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin at the stage of the career that they're at is just really stupid, in my opinion. And I think that the Kings now are further away than they were before these moves. And I don't know. I don't really get the Kings. Other than that, I mean, it's been a pretty, other than what we just went over, it's been a pretty calm and sort of underwhelming free agency class, especially in terms of spending and what was reported prior to free agency. A lot of people were reporting that there was going to be a significant rise in AAVs and a lot of money being spent. But according to numbers by The Athletic reported this morning, I mean, there's more than 100 million less than what we're used to seeing in free agency spending on the first day. So kind of a disappointing day in terms of splashes being made. And maybe that's just GMs being cautious and waiting for the cap to go up even more next year in an even better free agency class. I don't know. I guess we'll get our answer over the course of time. Reading the tea leaves from my perspective, this just looks like the simple case of a free agency class that is kind of underwhelming in talent, especially in terms of volume of talent. But yeah, that should basically do it. Just wanted to wrap up NHL free agency. Appreciate you guys watching, to those who did. Yeah, see you guys in the next video. Peace.